Okay, good morning and welcome to Just Daf It. Daf Yom Shir. We're learning Kesubos. Daf Ted Vav. We'll be finishing the first paragraph of Kesubos. And with that, we'll be finishing a year's worth of learning in most yeshivas only in 15 days. Pretty good, 14 days. For 2 weeks. We'll move on to the rest of Kesubos. All right, so let's start from the bottom of Yudal. I'm going to base the Mishnah. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Ma'aseh b'tinokesh sheyarda l'malus mayim min ha'ayin. There was an incident with a little young girl. I guess she wasn't so young. Maybe she's bat mitzvah, maybe a little older. She went to fill up water from the well. Benensa, she was raped. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Menuri and Rov Anshe Yer Masil Lekahuna Harezu Tinase Lekahuna. Yochanan already says the psak halacha. If most of that city is Jewish, because if they're not Jewish, they would possibly make her a zona. So therefore, Harezu Tinase Lekahuna. First of all, the woman who was raped is Mutaras Lekahuna, and the poskim say, or the Mefarshim say, the daughter of that union, if she became pregnant from that union, would also be ksher. Like we learned here, man the machshir ba machshir abitus. Like Gemara asks, Amalei Rav Rav Nachman, Rabbi Yochanan Nuri the Amar Kaman, Rabbi Yochanan in our Mishnah, who does he hold? Like Yikar Rav Gamliel, Fil Rav Psula, Nami Mechash. Gamliel says even if most of the city was non-Jews, he would be machshir, because Bari Visham Bari either combined with the Chezkas Haguf. Yikar Rabbi Yeshua, Fil Rav Ksherim, Nami Pasul. Rabbi Yeshua holds Bari doesn't work, even if it's Rav Ksherim. We'll have to explain why in the Gemara. I asked that yesterday. We don't know an answer today. Hopefully, we'll give a satisfactory answer. Satisfactory answer. Amar le hachi amar Rabbi Yehuda amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said, top of Ted of Amalef, shel sipura ha'maisa. The incident happened in the marketplace where there were a lot of buses and vans and sheiruts. If you're familiar with Israel, wagons. They used to have wagons. Now they have buses, trains. It was a public area. It was Tachana Merkazit, the main station. It was Penn Station. Right, obviously it was a bus from Muncie to Lakewood. And Lakewood, there were Jews on that bus. So therefore you have two rows. You have the row of Lakewood is a Jewish city, plus you have the Muncie bus, Muncie Trails, and it's going Lakewood. So therefore you have a double row. Rabbi Yana says, Rabbi Yana nevelas v'kronos kshera. She's nevelas on the wagon to kshera lakuna. She actually was violated on the bus itself. So the Gemara says, Ella nevelas b'shas kronos. As long as she's nevelas at the time when the buses come, right? When the buses arrive in Lakewood, that's okay. Kshera lakuna v'alpiri shecham nesipuri ubal havlad shtuki. However, if there was no kronos, if there wasn't at the time when the buses were coming, one of the people left his house and was bo'oler, havlad shtuki. The vlad is shtuki. He's treated like a mamzer, safek mamzer. Kihad chiyasar of dimi amar zeiri. The Gemara says, right? You need two robes. You only have one robe. It's not good enough. Kihad asar of dimi amar zeiri amar mechanina amar zeiri amar mechanina. Holken achar robe here. Ben holken achar robe say. You go after the robe of the city, but you don't go after the robe of the seya, the traveling people on the bus. So the Gemara initially asks, Klape Laya. It doesn't make sense. Hani naidi bahani kvi. There's more makom to go after rove when the rove is moving. We'll see. If it's stationary, there's less makom to go after rove. The city, people in the city generally live in their houses. People on the bus, they're on the move from Muncie to Lakewood. They got their jobs in Lakewood. The good jobs are in Lakewood. Muncie doesn't have the good jobs. All they have in Muncie is Evergreen, to go shopping. And your closest square, of course, also. It's on a square dance. I'm joking. I hope people don't take that joke the wrong way. So the Gemara says, Hani nadi v'hani kvi v'kaimi. Right? The people in the city generally remain stagnant. They're in Lakewood. They're learning in yeshiva and BMG. Like the Gemara said before, you have to have both. The rove of Jews in the city, Lakewood, the rove of the Jews, plus a Muncie Trails bus. Most of that bus are Jewish people. Of course, there's non-Jewish people, like the construction workers that, the Hispanics that are helping out in the construction project, building all those new homes in Lakewood. So the Gemara says, the rove here is not good enough. Similarly, if it was a place that was a non-Jewish city, but you had Muncie Trails going to that place, that doesn't work either. My time, what's the reason you don't rely on each rov by itself? Rov sa'atu rov ha'ir. Technically, rov se'ah would be good enough, would be considered a good rov. But because of rov ha'ir, doesn't happen, right? And the reason rov se'ah is good, even according to Rabbi Yeshua, possibly, is because it's considered to be called a parish meruba parish. If you're moving, you're considered called a parish meruba parish, and that is better than just a rov which is stationary. So the Gemara says that's a ruba de isa kaman. Ruba de isa kaman is like 90%, so therefore for sure we rely on it better than bari b'shema. So the Gemara says the rov ha'ir nami either ka'azli inu l'gaba. If the people they're leaving the base madrash and they're going to this woman to rape her, I'm joking. I mean, listen, even in the best yeshivas, you have some guys not the best. So the Gemara says either guys in the Gaba, they met her, called the parish meruba parish. We'll say called the parish meruba parish, and even Rabbi Yeshua would agree with called the parish meruba parish. We'll see. Is there a difference in ruba de isa kaman and called the parish meruba parish? We'll see that in Ian Ben Sion. There is a significant difference. No, she's going to them. The havalei kavua. So therefore, it's kavua. If it's kavua, they're stationary in the house. So therefore, we treat it as a suffix. And therefore, all you have again is bari v'shema. Bari v'shema is not good enough according to Yeshua. The Gemara says, "Do you even need two rows?" Right? You have a famous case: 9 stores. They're all 9 gourmet glots next to each other. They lined up 9 gourmet glots next to each other. Just in case you missed the first 8, you'll get the 9th one. One is not kosher. Chuck's butcher shop. Man, you don't remember where you bought from. Sveiko Aser. We treat it as Aser. You can't eat the meat. If on the way out of the supermarket you drop the piece of meat in the street, right, and it's outside one of the stores, right? It's not when you came home and you, which store did I buy from? The suffix is now. We're donning the suffix based on what you found in the middle of the street. Then you go after the rov. Medina. So you see, you do go after one rov over there. Maybe you'll tell me the case of Teisha Chanugos is talking about where the city, people are traveling in from the city. The gates of the city are closed, or not closed. Sorry, most of the people come, and most of the people we're talking about Eretz Yisrael, where most of the people are Jewish. Amar Zera, and you have 2 rows. Amar Zera al Pishay Dlas Medina Neulos. The din of Holchan Achar Arov, Benimsa Holchan Achar Arov, right? It is not a din of Kol the Parish Meruba Parish. I'll explain that in Ian Ben Zion. You don't go after the rov, and through the Isakama 90%. You do go after a rov. Why do you go after a rov there, and over here you don't? So the Gemara says, Maila Asu B'Yuchsen. Technically, you should be able to go after the rov. The problem is over here is that Maila Asu B'Yuchsen, Midarabon, and there were goes there when it comes to Yuchas, marrying the Kahuna, they were extra careful, and therefore they don't rely on it. They don't rely on that one rov over here. The Mishnah's case, or the Mishua's Machmir, is like what the Gemara said before. It's a case of Kavua, right? Not where they left their house, where they left the base medrash, they left their houses. It's Kavua, so therefore all you have is Bari V'Shema. Bari V'Shema is not good enough. This case over here, one rov would be good enough because V'Nimsa Halach Rov, it did move. It's not a case of Kavua, so therefore, right? So therefore, and the reason, but when it comes to regular Yuchsin, when it comes to if the people would leave their houses, we still would not go after the one rov. We still would not go after the one rov, even if they left their houses, because my last will be yuchsin, like just like zerach hashin lemiyuta by yisurim, a yuchsin also they were choshesh lemiyuta for the 10%. Gufa amar b'zera kol kavok mas al machsadami ben lekul ben lechumra. Here's the concept: anything which is set in place is not moving, and we have a suffix about it. We treat it mechsal mechsal. I'll explain mechsal in a second. It sounds like 50% chance. Whether it's the kula l'chumra, minale l'revzeraha. Where does he know this? Ilam teisha chanuyos from the brisa, which says teisha chanuyos kula machas basar shuta machas basar nevela belakach machas nanyo de amazing halakha. He doesn't know which store he bought from. Sveiko aser. The halacha is safek. Even though 90% of the stores sell kosher meat, we can't eat that piece of meat. If you found the piece of meat in the street, then you go after the rov. Hasam l'chumra. There the suffix is go l'chumra. Suffix del rice go l'chumra. Ela mitisa. Where do you see go l'kula? You have 9 frogs. And sheretz echad, a toad is considered, the shwana shratzim, only 8 shratzim, the dead shratzim are considered really shratzim that are metame as an avatuma in the Torah. They're enumerated in Parshat Shemini, I believe. So those are the 8 ones. A toad is one, but a frog is not. There's a difference between a toad and a frog. So let's say you have 9 frogs and 1 toad. You touch one of these 10 dead species. You don't know if you touched the sherets or not. Sveiko tame, which you just tell me. Again, you go l'chumra, right? You go after the rove there, right? 9 of them. The sherets is 1 out of 10. Still, you go l'chumra. It's sveiko l'chumra. Elam and tisha shratzim is svardeya echar 9 tummy things svardeya echar beinayim and nagav echar mehenio deya beizah and beizah mehenagel. You don't know which one you touch. If the suffix happened, it was on a private domain, it was in a house, in a building, where you touched one of these shratzim. So the halacha is that suffix tuma b'shus hayachid in a private domain is considered tamei. B'shus harabim sveiko tar. No, kol kavua tells me that you treat it as a suffix. We don't judge by the numbers. I can't judge the case. That's basically what kavua tells me. Kol kavua, if it's stationary, I can't judge the other things over here. There's no movement. When there's no movement, I can't integrate other numbers over here. So I treat it as a suffix. And whatever you do is in a public domain. B'shus harabim is sveiko tar. Suffix tuma b'shus harabim is tar. So therefore, even though you had 9 shratzim, we would still go on 1 day, only 1 frog, which is not a sheretz, we would still treat it as a suffix, and therefore you go lakula, and that's lakula. Midaraisa minolan. Where do you know this concept of kavua? Where do you know it from the Torah? Amakra, ba'arav lo b'kam. All of the pasuk says by killing someone, right? You ambushed him and you killed him. It's talking about someone who kills unintentionally. So the pasuk is saying if you ambushed him and you intentionally killed him, that's not shogi. That's mazed. Actually, it's kavin lo. So this extra pasuk va'arav lo, what does that teach you? So the Gemara in Sanhedrin is a machlokas. Rabbi Shimon says actually it's kavin lo, meaning if I intend to kill one person and I kill another person, I'm not chayiv misa. I'm not chayiv killing that person. I think if you kill someone, you're chayiv sayif. I think that if you murder someone, I mean, beheaded. I'm not sure. I think that's what it is. Or chenek, or skila. I'm not sure. I think it's sayif. What? Sayif. Okay, so you get sayif. So Rosh Hashanah says you don't get sayif in that case because even though I intended for one person to kill him, but I killed someone else, I'm not chayiv. Rabbanan say you are chayiv misa in that case. What do they do with the pasuk? It's talking about a case where I throw a rock. You're very angry. You're protesting Shabbos. You throw a rock into a crowd of people. What's the case? This mob is 9 non-Jewish people. And 1 Jewish person. And the halacha is that you go lakula. But typically the ruba knainim. The reason you don't kill the person, you're not chayav misa for killing whoever. You threw the rock and you killed one of these people. We don't know who you killed. So are you chayav misa or not? So Rabbanan hold even if you're not mechavin for a person, right? You should be chayav. In this case, you're not chayav, right? So what's the chiddush? First of all, 90% of the people are knainim. So for sure, even if I say it's 50-50, 5 Knainim and 5 Yisraelim, right? Tzavik Nevoshas Lahakal, you'd go to Kula because Rashi brings the pasuk. V'etzilu ha'eda, Shafto Eda v'etzilu ha'eda. The Beis Din has its job is to try to make people pater, to exonerate people, not to make them chayiv. When it comes to capital punishment, there's a unique kula in the Torah. We try to exonerate him as much as possible. No, this mob was composed of 9 Jews and 1 Kanaani, 1 non-Jew. The Havalei Kanaani Kavua. The Kanaani is Kavua. Here again, you go the kula over here, that you judge it as Kavua, right? They're all a mob, right? They're stationary in the mob. They're protesting the light rail. I don't know, whatever they're doing. And therefore, even the 1 Kanaani makes it kamechsa mechsa, they makes it like a suffix. And again, suffix navashas lahakel, you go the kula, and therefore you wouldn't kill the person for murdering somebody, even though there was non-Yisraelim there. Itmar, Rashi Amar Rav Halacha Rabbi Yossi. He says Halacha of Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, right? In the case where this woman was raped. Rav Chaim Bar Rav Amar Rav Hora Shah. It was not really the halacha. It was an exceptional ruling in that case. They allowed her in that case. Basically, Rabbi Yirmiyah liyuchsin lo bein anshay rubei. So the Gemara understood originally Halacha Rabbi Yossi, even without the addition of the Gemara, we have the Rov Seah, we have the caravan coming there, the bus coming there. Lichsin Labain and Trey Ruby. Don't we need 2 rows for Yuchsin? Vatnan. We have a Mishnah on top of Ted Vavam and Beis. Matzah Batinok Mushlach. Let's say you find, this is a Mishnah in Machshirin of all places. Matzah Batinok Mushlach. You find a young child, abandoned in the city, right? You don't know if he's Jewish or not, right? Obviously, he was a product of people that didn't want to keep their child for whatever reason, either had health issues, or even if they had health issues, maybe it was an illicit relationship. They don't want to have recognition they had a child. Imro of the kochavim. If most of the city is non-Jews, we treat this tinok, this child, as a non-Jew. Imro Yisrael. If most of the people are Jewish, in Israel, mechsal. If somehow it's exactly equal, 50% Jewish, 50% not Jewish, Yisrael, we treat him like Yisrael. Rav added about this Mishnah, Lo shanu ela lachyoso. We only said, we'll see what he means in a second, we only said one of these halachas when it comes to trying to feed him, being obligated to support him, to save his life, to feed him. There's an obligation on base in a Jewish city to sustain people, right? If he's poor, to feed them and to sustain them. Al yuchsin lo. We don't rely on Rov Yisrael for yuchsin. I mean, even in Rov of the places Yisrael, we don't rely on Rov of it to say that the child comes from a kosher relationship. We assume he comes from a pastor relationship and he can't marry the kuna. Maybe he's a mamzer. V'Shmuel Amar. Shmuel says lefakeach alav is hagal. Shmuel says about one of these halachas in the Mishnah. Lefakeach is hagal. We'll see in a second. Ish the midday. So you see anyway from here, Yuchsin Rov Yisrael is not good enough. One rov is not good enough for Yuchsin. You need 2 ruchs, you need 2 rovs. So the Gemara says Ish the midday had Amar Yehuda Amarav b'kronosh Sipuri have a ma'isa. No, the questioner didn't understand. The really possible Rabbi Yossi is because we already said the Mishnah was talking about a case we have Krono Shel Sipuri, where you have a caravan coming over, a bus coming over. Actually, you have two rovs over there. Rav Rava said that the ruling in the Mishnah was unique. Hara, only at that time they really needed to be makel over there, but generally wouldn't allow her to be kosher to the kuna. Kasha, what are you going to do? Haman de masniha lo masniha. The one who taught that we're talking about Krono Shel Sipuri didn't teach the Rav Chaim Rava. Chaim Rava was not going according to them on the Amar, so he was relying on one rov, and one rov only in Shas and Chak we rely on one rov. Gufa matzah batinok mushlach. Let's go back to this Mishnah. You find a child abandoned. Imrov ovdei chavim ovdei chavim. If most of the city is not Jewish, we treat it as a non-Jew. Imrov Yisrael mechsal Yisrael, half and half, we treat it as a Jew. Amar Rav l'shon alachayos al yuchsin lo. When we say rov of the city is Jewish, it's only in regards to sustaining him, but according to Yuchsin, we wouldn't rely on one rov for Yuchsin. Shmuel says, in order to save him from the rubble, right, a building collapsed, to save him from a rubble on Shabbos, to violate Shabbos, to save him. So let's see in a second what Shmuel meant. Shmuel says, right? We thought Shmuel was saying, right? That if rov of the city is not Jewish, only if rov of the city is Jewish, then we'll save him on desecrated Shabbos for him, to save him on Shabbos from the rubble. We know that when it comes to Pikuach Nefesh, saving a life, you don't go after rov. Even if there's a mere chance of saving him, a small chance of saving a life, still you go after the miyat. Shmuel's statement was going on the first part of the Mishnah. If most of the city is not Jewish, you treat him like non-Jew. The child is non-Jewish. Amar Shmuel, ain't okay. When it comes to saving his life, desecrating Shabbos, from extricating him from the rubble, ain't okay. Ain't okay. And Allah is not like that. That even if most of the city is not Jewish, we still are choshesh for the miyat that it might be a Jewish child, and we violate Shabbos to save him. Right? If most of the city is not Jewish, we treat like not Jewish. What is that? What is the general Mishnah? What is that coming to teach? If he's not, most of the city is not Jewish, even though we have, we wouldn't feed him nevelos. We would feed him nevelos, right? Even though normally you're not supposed to be meichel, right? A katan, we learn in Yevamos, is an isser to give a katan something which is nevel. Even though katan is not mitzvah in the mitzvahs, you can't feed him nevelos. If rov of the city is non-Jewish, that's a ruba de isakam, 90%. We allow that for about, even though normally we pass on our me'ach, 90%. when it comes to the Isser of Baal Tochil, that's really only the Isser of doing something for someone else. We're not Cheshin L'Miyuta in that case. Imrov Yisrael my Hilchasa. What is that general rule coming to tell you? Amarav Papa Lahachzelo Aveda. If Moses said he is Jewish, then you return an Aveda to him, right? If he grows up and he lost something, you only have to return an Aveda technically to Jews. You don't have to return an Aveda to Goyim. The Gemara says it's maybe a Kiddush Hashem to return to Goyim, but you don't have to return anything to Goyim. So if Rov of the city is Jewish, you assume he's Jewish, your master his Aveda. Mechsal, Yisrael, my Hilchasa. What's that coming to teach you? Amar Reish Lakish L'Nezikin. When it comes to Nezikin, we're talking about, let's say, his animal gores our animal, Jewish animal, or a Jewish animal gores his animal. Hechidamis. What's the case? He named it the Nalkei Torah Didan, Torah Day, right? Jewish people, the Jewish residents of the city, their shore, gores his shore, Lamai, right? So if I'm at a short time, we only pay Chatzi Nezek. If it's a Yisrael, he only pays Chatzi Nezek. A Goy is even a short time. The Gemara says in Baba Kama, he's chayav to pay Nezek Shalem. So if our shore of Yisrael, gores his shore, Lemalei Aisi Raya, the Yisrael ad Vishkol, right? Why do we assume he's a Yisrael? So prove to us that he's Yisrael before you take money. You want to be mostly money from me, right? That my shore guard your shore. Prove to me Yisrael, because if you're really not Jewish, I don't owe you anything. Torah Efkiram Amonon Shel Goyim. The Gemara says, "L'shricha denakei Torah didei Torah didan." His shore, this uncertain person's animal, gored a Jewish animal. Pagam Mishalim. So he has to pay this guy, this non-Jewish or Suffolk person, has to pay half the money because he's definitely, if he's Jewish, he has to pay Chatzi Nezek. If he's not Jewish, he has to pay Nezek Shalom. So at least half the money. B'idach Paga Amalu Yisrael Lav Yisrael on a Eitin Lachun. And that's what the Mishnah meant to say, that he's just like Israel, that you can't be mostly the mammon from him because he can tie net 50-50 in the city. I might be Israel. So therefore, the other 50, I don't have to give you. Maybe I'm Israel. I only owe you Chatzi Nezek for short time, not like a non-Jew would owe Nezek Shalom. That's what the Mishnah meant when it said we judge a Mechsa, we treat him like a Israel, a Motzi Mechaber Raya, and you have to prove that he's not Israel. That's the end of today's shir. Stay tuned for Ian with Ben Steele. We'll talk more about the difference between V'nimsa halach harov and called a parish, meruba parish. There's a very important distinction between them. See you there. Bye.